And in 2000, we had 50 stores. I thought, what would happen if we did something completely radical, a pharmacy that was bigger than the average pharmacy in Australia? And I said, and what would happen if we radically dropped the price of everything by 25%? And I mean 25% across everything. We'd either go broke or we'd be successful or somewhere in between. We weren't sure what would happen. But we had 50 stores. So for us, it was a good opportunity to test the market out.
In this episode, I interview Jack Gance, the billionaire co-founder of Chemist Warehouse, which is one of Australia's largest privately owned companies, with over 550 stores and $7 billion a year in sales. It's not hard to see, talking to Jack, why he's a permanent fixture on the Financial Review's rich list with a personal fortune of $1.5 billion. Fantastic to have him on the show and hear his insights on business, and specifically his business and the world of pharmacy. He talks in detail about the growth of Chemist Warehouse from being a family business into take that next step as it becomes a multinational company. Hope you enjoy the show and feel free to share. All right, well, Jack, thanks very much. Welcome to the show. Really appreciate you giving us your time.
My pleasure.
I'm interested in your early history when you started in the pharmacy business. Do you want to just start off a little bit there about your early history?
Yes, I qualified as a pharmacist in 1966. And then I started in partnership with my brother in about 1972. After working in the pharmacy for a couple of years, for about a year or so, I wanted to do something a bit more entrepreneurial. And so I looked around for products that we could import. I decided to look at sunglasses, because sunglasses was something that we sold a lot of. You know, we were big retailers of sunglasses. I decided to look at entering the sunglass business. And the way I did that was I went to the Taiwanese consulate. Remember, this is about 1972, when there was no mobile phones, there was no photocopiers,
yep.
There was, went to this Taiwan, and there was no internet, there was no Google, there was no mobile phones, there was no Apple phones. I went to the Taiwanese consulate and I looked at it in phone books. I had phone books of manufacturers of different products. We found the sunglass manufacturers. And so I wrote down the names of all of the manufacturers, or the main manufacturers, went back to the pharmacy with two fingers. I typed a letter: "Dear sir, we are the largest importer of sunglasses in Australia. We'd like to have some samples of your products." It wasn't a lie. We just had a timing difference. And soon we received lots and lots of samples, and we took the business from there.
Yeah, right. So pharmacy into sunglasses, and obviously you've built into the pharmacy industry in a very big way over time. But in the early days, how many pharmacies was it? Just the one to start, and then
well, we had one pharmacy. We started with one pharmacy. Then the guy across the road died. The pharmacist died. We bought his business, and we had two pharmacies. That was about the time I started doing the importing, and we started importing. And my wife we were in France at a trade show. My wife discovered the product, a very lightweight product that we brought back, and we created the Lespex brand with that, and that gave us the impetus to be able to grow the importing business. We went from there to Latan, suntan lotion, and then we wanted to do Le Parfum. We couldn't. We ended up doing Australis with Ken Doan designing the artwork, and then we did Australis Cosmetics. This was between the period of 1972 and 1991. We sold that business in 1991. We had about 35 pharmacies. Now, these pharmacies were pharmacies that we had with partners. Each pharmacy would have a partner, and that would be the managing partner. We would have the majority interest in that pharmacy, and we developed the group, or the business, by having partnerships of pharmacies.
Okay. Yeah, right. And so then the evolution from there goes to what now is today is the Chemist Warehouse Group and multiple brands.
150 stores. Yeah, well, I mean, it was. I mean, I say that it was a very quick change that took 50 years to get there. when we sold the Australis Corporation, which at that stage was much bigger than the pharmacy business was, we had 35 stores. And when we sold that in 91, I semi-retired. I did an MBA, went to America, did a semester there, came back, and we decided to reinvigorate the pharmacy business. I wasn't working in the pharmacies directly at that stage, having developed this big distribution business. Went back into the pharmacies, and we developed the first of our groups, which was My Chemist. So we had 35 stores, and we looked at the marketplace, and we had Amcal, Guardian, Chemmart, we had Terry White, we had every brand that you could think of, diverse brands, none of which were performing the way we wanted them to perform. Because what happened was the marketing groups, these groups are run by the wholesalers, and what they do is they promote products that they get the best rebate for, instead of the products that sell best. So we looked at it and we said, well, hang on, this doesn't make a lot of sense for us. And the cost of operating through these marketing groups was becoming greater and greater. So we decided to produce our own marketing group, create our own marketing group, and we created My Chemist. Now, My Chemist is what I would call today, I'd call it a pretend discounter. Back then, I didn't call it a pretend discounter because it was a discounter. We actually discounted about 100 products. Now, if you bought those 100 products, then you bought it at a discount. But everything else was a full retail price. And our competitors today are what I call pretend discounters, because most of the products that they have sold at, or everything's sold at full retail price, except the things that they promote to compete with us.
There's a few items here and there, sort of thing.
That's right. I mean, they say we'll match any price. They will, but everything on the shelf is for retail. So we had My Chemist, and that was the beginning of the concentration on the front of shop. The average pharmacy back then, 75% of their business is in prescriptions, and only about 25% of the business is front of shop. And it's the same today. They probably dropped to about 20% front of shop in pharmacy today.
Right.
So we were focusing on the front of shop, and what we said was, if we can increase the range of products, if we can make the front of shop more attractive, get more, promote the front of shop, have better advertising, we'll increase the prescription business we're going to get anyway. But if
that's the engine room, right?
Yeah, if we can then get everyone that comes to get a prescription, if we can sell them one or two additional items, then we're going to grow our business overall. And that's exactly what we did with My Chemist. And My Chemist was running at around about $2.5 to $3 million turnover in about 93, 94 when we started, as against the average pharmacy doing around about 1 million. And most of that growth was from the front of shop. We grew the front.
So that's per store, Jack. That's
a turnover per store. Yes. Turnover per store. So we grew the stores, and it was a nice business. We had a loyalty program. We had promotions every month. We'd have different promotions, and we had great support from the manufacturers who gave us good advertising rebates. So we found that we were able to use the advertising money to advertise the products, and that sold more products. So as we sold more product, we got more advertising money, and it was an ongoing engine that continued to grow. That worked really well. And in 2000, we had 50 stores.
Yeah.
And I had a bit of a thought. I thought, what would happen if we did something completely radical? I'd seen the big box stores overseas. I'd seen the Best Buys in America, and all, and Bunnings was growing here. Big box stores were growing here. Yeah. And I thought, what would happen if we had a pharmacy that was bigger than the average pharmacy in Australia at that time? What would happen if we were able to do that? How would we make it work? And I said, and what would happen if we radically dropped the price of everything by 25%? And I mean 25% across everything. Well, we'd either go broke or we'd be successful or somewhere in between. We weren't sure what would happen. But we had 50 stores. So for us, we figured that it was a good investment. It was a good opportunity to test the market out. And I can't tell you that it happened immediately. I can't tell you that immediately we got results, because we didn't. We certainly got sales, but it took a long while to be able to to make the numbers work. If you consider that the biggest expense in any retail business is wages and rent. Now, rent is a percentage of turnover, is relative. So if you've got a $100,000 rent bill and you're turning over $1 million, that's 10% rent. But if you can get up to $10 million, that's 1%. So the idea is to pay a low rent per square, paid low rent, and have a high turnover. Well, we were able to do that because of the sheer volume of product that we started to sell. I mean, the first store we had in Footscray, the second store we had in Dandenong, they were approaching $6 or $8 million, which was unheard of at the time.
Yeah, right. Per store, right.
Per store, they were incredible. We still weren't making money.
Yep.
But we were getting there. And with the advertising support we had from the manufacturers, the basket size increased, so therefore the cost of operating was cheaper because the wages were cheaper. Well, I mean, as a percentage, were less.
Yep.
So by our first store opened in June 2000. By 2002, we were starting to make some money, and we had a store in Shepparton, and the average size of the stores increased, and we were getting more and more advertising behind it. And as we spent more money on advertising, we increased the sales. We started online business, and that was taking off. So by 2003, we had about 6 or 8 stores, and they were averaging around about $9 million, $8 or $9 million turnover, which was really like they were the biggest pharmacies in Australia at the time.
These are the separate discounted stores compared to your other 50 that you had.
Well, yes, the other 50 by Chemist stores, some of those have been converted to Chemist Warehouse because it's a much better model for us. I mean, the average My Chemist store does about $5 million, and the average Chemist Warehouse store does about $12 to $14 million. We've got some we've got some stores that do $45 million turnover.
Oh, far out.
And we've got some that do around about 8. But on average, we're about $12.5 million turnover per store.
So you're sacrificing there, Jack. You're sacrificing margin in the early days to gain market share and brand awareness, right?
We sacrifice margin, but we still sacrifice margin even today. When we're tempted to increase the prices, like what would happen if we increase the prices instead of 25% discount? We said 20% discount. Nobody would notice, but that's not true. I think that we have to be true to our form. I mean, despite all the temptations to ratchet up the margin by increasing the prices, we know that the loyalty we have at our stores is so high because people believe in us. People believe that when they go to our store, that they know they're going to get the right product at the right price. I mean, we have over $1.5 million worth of product in every store. Now, that might seem like a lot of product. With the average pharmacy, our average competitor probably is around about $60,000 worth of product front of shop. So you compare a $60,000 front of shop stock holding to $1.5 million. So no wonder when they go into our competitors, they don't see what they want. They're not sure they're buying the right thing. They don't see the full range. I mean, the way that our sales success grows is because people come in and they're pleasantly surprised at the treasure hunt. They walk through the store to go to the back to the dispensary. They walk past a pile of vitamins at good prices. They shampoo, fragrances fragrances cheaper than duty free, vitamins, the best range of vitamins you could come up with, and so they're all tempted to buy that. And that's the strength of our model. I mean, it has really, it's got great loyalty. We have customers that say, "I wouldn't shop anywhere else," because I know that I'll find what I want at your store at the right price. So there's no point going anywhere else. They will if they've got a toothache and they're in pain. They might walk across the road to the local pharmacy and buy some toothache drops. But when they want to buy their vitamins and their shampoo and their cosmetics, they'll buy them at a store because they know they'll be substantially cheaper and they'll have a better range and a better choice of product.
Yeah. And so in that sense, I mean, how many stores did you say it is today? 550?
We have 550 stores in Australia. There's about 35 My Chemist stores. The rest are all Chemist Warehouse.
Right.
We've also got stores in China.
Okay.
You know, when the Daegu market was really strong. I mean, it's all changed. When it was really strong, we did a special arrangement with Alibaba, and now we're Alibaba's #1 retailer in health and beauty. On Singles Day, you know, that's the day they have the promotions. We sold 100 million RMB in 1 hour. The 100 million RMB is about 20 million Australian dollars in 1 hour. We were sending pallets of product over there. We're the strongest health and beauty retailer on Alibaba, and probably in China.
How long have you been in China for, Jack?
We've been in China for around about 7 years. We started with Alibaba. Now we've got 4 bricks and mortar stores. Okay. You can't sell Australian products in China because of the ridiculous regulations they have about registration. You know, that they require you to go through a full-blown registration. And in spite of the fact that Blackmores and Swiss and all the vitamin companies have been working on this for about 6 or 7 years, not one product is registered in China. So you can't sell the products we sell most, which is the vitamin products, in China. But what you can do is you can sell them in duty-free stores inside China. And we have 4 duty-free stores inside China that operate like a full-blown Chemist Warehouse store. The only difference is that you have to have identification. You have to have it cleared by customs before you can take the goods out of the store.
Right. So in airports and that sort of stuff, is that what you're saying?
No, it's not at airports. They have designated duty-free stores within towns.
Yeah.
They're not the traditional duty-free that you'd think of.
Yeah. Okay.
We also went to New Zealand because we said our model is one that's going to be, you know, work any pretty well in any country, anywhere that people want to bargain, anywhere people want a good shopping experience, it's going to work. So we went to
global model, right?
We went to New Zealand, and unlike Australia, where we have a lot of restrictions in relation to location rules and registration, in New Zealand, you can actually open a pharmacy wherever you want, and you don't have to be a pharmacist to own a pharmacy. So when we went to New Zealand, it gave us the ability to go anywhere we wanted to. So we're able to choose locations. If you see our stores, you'll find that the average size of our store is much smaller than what we'd like. Ideally, we like about 500 to 700 square meters. But we can't always have that size because we don't have the option or luxury of being able to choose where we want to go. We have to go where the regulations allow us. But in New Zealand, there was no such thing. And also, New Zealand was New Zealand had a very high retail price of product. So the discount model that we have gave a much bigger discount in New Zealand. So in New Zealand, our average turnover is over $20 million, and we've got over 35 stores. We're doing over $700 million in New Zealand, and that's after about 3 years in New Zealand.
Far out. I mean, and that's because you can optimize the stores to how you want without those regulations, right?
Well, it's a combination of one, being able to have the size of the store where we want it, number one, and number two, because we have a less competitive marketplace where the retail prices are so much higher, so our discounts are greater, and therefore the rationale to buy in our stores is greater, and the loyalty is even stronger if possible. So, you know, New Zealand. We also went to Ireland, and people say, why did you go to Ireland? We went to Ireland because Ireland is a stepping stone into the UK, and we wanted to make sure we had the model right. We didn't want to open stores in the UK before we were sure that we're able to properly change the model to suit the market. Too many multinationals go to a new country and they decide they're going to open up, and they open up 200 stores, 100 stores. Like, you know, Bunnings went to the UK and bought Homebase, and they changed all the stores overnight because they said, our model's the best. The Australian Bunnings model is fantastic. We'll change all of the Homebase ones to Bunnings. And $2 billion later, they left. We would never presume that we know better than the local market. So we will always make sure that when we go to a new market, that we will test it in a small way before we actually expand in a bigger way.
And there's got to be a learning curve there. I mean, no matter what, when you, like you say, when you go into a different market, there's going to be cultural and other differences there that you just, unless you're there, you're not going to be aware of. And you got to learn what they are by starting small. And if you fail on that sort of stuff, better to fail small and learn the lessons quickly and in a smaller way than have it, like you say, across 200 stores or whatever it might be.
Yeah, there is. And, it's amazing how many big multinationals don't learn the lessons that you can learn in history. But anyway,
you see it time and time again.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Masters thing is a classic example of that, where we decide. And I actually think Masters was fantastic because we were able to acquire the property. So I think that was great.
There's always a flip side, isn't there?
There's always a good side. There is.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I think, is it around about 7 billion in sales a year now?
Yeah, it's probably going to hit 8 billion in the next financial year. We sell about 50% of everything over the counter in pharmacy in Australia.
Yeah, right.
Sub-product ranges like vitamins probably sell about 70%. Like, for example, I'll give you an example of what we do in the marketplace. In vitamins, we sell over $1 billion worth of vitamins a year. Now, that's out of a total market in Australia of 1.6 billion. Now, if you look at the American market, which is about 7.2 billion, we're about 2 to 3 times the volume per capita than they are. And that's purely because, 1, we have a better range in Australia. 2, we have better promotion. 3, our products are better. The education's better. The advertising's better. And because we sell 1 billion of that 1.6 billion, which is way above our, way above our footprint, we sell a lot more vitamins. But it's the same with all products. If you speak to any of the multinationals, Unilever, Colgate, Palmolive, Reckitt Benckiser, they'll tell you that the market share of their products in Australia is much greater than that of other countries because of our activity. But because we sell so much product doesn't mean that we cannibalize everyone else's. I mean, what happens is that we create a lot more interest in the market. And so I think you'll find that our competitors sell more pro rata than probably other countries. So overall, we grow the overall market. And that's one of the reasons why we get so much support from the manufacturers, because clearly, if they support us, they grow the market.
Yeah. And in terms of growth, where's I noticed you talked about New Zealand now being up to, off 35 stores, being up to 700 million in turnover. I mean, that's almost 10% of your company revenue in just 3 short years. Is that a big area of growth, even though it's a relatively small nation? Where's the big growth come from next?
Well, we expect to double or even triple we'll probably be about 1.5 to $2 billion in New Zealand. New Zealand is a very good market for us. I mean, we're looking at a lot of different markets. I mean, our next move would be into the UK, and that's a huge market. I mean, there's 65 million people in the UK, and it's a great market. We're waiting to make sure we refine our product before we go into the UK.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've been approached by the Israeli government. I mean, there's a lot of press going on at the moment. I've been approached by the Israeli government who basically said to me, Jack, we love your model. The pharmacies in Israel are expensive, and we're getting overcharged. We're being screwed in Israel.
Yeah.
Can you please come to Israel? So I had some meetings, and the attorney and the Director General of Commerce has promised that he would support our entry into Israel, and he would remove any of the barriers to parallel imports, so we can bring Australian products in. And any products that are registered in Australia, he'll bring in that will allow automatic entry into Israel. So with those two things, we'll be able to bring Australian products into Israel. We'll be able to sell Australian products, quality products in Israel at prices about half the price that the local products are being sold, because the manufacturers in Israel have cartels, and like the people importing nappies usually import both brands, A and B brand, and they control the market. So the price of nappies over there is twice the price it is in any other country.
Oh,
So
right. Well, that's a game changer. I mean, in terms of if
the Israeli government's very excited about it. They've put a lot of publicity around it. But I need to find a partner. I mean, in order to be able to do that, and we've also been invited to go to Indonesia, and there's lots of other countries. And Indonesia is an interesting country. There's about 250 million people in Indonesia. There's probably about 30 million people that are well off. So there's probably 30 million people, as many as more than Australia, that have a higher GDP than Australia. So the potential in Indonesia is fantastic, notwithstanding the fact that the average GDP is probably lower than Australia, but the sheer number of people. So look, I mean, the opportunities are great, and I spend a lot of my time looking at different markets. I was in Oman, and the Oman government wants us to go there for the same reason, because the prices are too high. Everyone sees us as being able to lower the prices with today's
alleviate the problem, right?
With today's inflation and with today's increase in prices, people are looking for opportunities and ways of being able to bring the price of commodities down.
And it becomes a political issue too. I mean, everywhere you go, you've only got to look at the US with gas prices. That becomes a political issue when people are hurting and the price of essential items is too expensive. That puts pressure on the governments of the day to make decisions. That's going to play right into your hands to get those concessions that are needed to bring products from Australia and like Israel are doing.
Talk about the US. Awesome. You talk about the US, that's an interesting market, because in the US, the price of medicines is about 4 times the price of what it is in Australia. And the whole system there is really one which forces the price up. The drug companies, the big pharma, are big donors to the political parties, and they donate, if not hundreds of millions, billions of dollars to the and the profits they make in the United States, it's outrageous.
It's astronomical.
I mean, if I compare the price of any drug in America with the price in Australia, the same drug, we're about a quarter of the price of what it is over there.
It's legitimately a quarter of the price, is it?
It's legitimately a quarter of the price.
Wow.
Anyone that, I mean, any drug in America is at least 4 times the price that is in Australia, and that's in US dollars.
Is that an opportunity for you in due course, or is it such a politicized issue?
Well,
and regulated issue that it makes it hard.
We're looking at the United States, obviously. In fact, I'm going over there on Monday to a conference, and look, the United States is really something that I'd like to be able to look at, and I'd like to have a pharmacy in Oxford Street and in Fifth Avenue. So but the thing is that because the United States is such a big market, and because they've got 3 very big players, there's CVS, Walgreens, and Rite Aid, who are very, very strong players, and because the way that the whole reimbursement of prescriptions is controlled by the PBMs, it's a tough market to go to. So certainly one that's very attractive because of the size, with 300 million people or whatever. But by the same token, it is just so complicated the way that things are run there, and every pharmacist I speak to says, "Oh, this system's terrible," and I say, well, "Why don't you do something about it?" "Oh, you can't do anything about it because it's so complicated and they're so entrenched, and you can't rock the boat because then they will de-enfranchise you."
And
but it's certainly a market that I'd like to look at, but we need to have the right partners, and we need to have we need to have time to work out how to make that work.
I mean, that's all the future. What about and the growth of the business? If we bring it back home, I know Wesfarmers has bought API, and that's a big player in the market. How does a company like Wesfarmers? I've always admired Wesfarmers as a business, as a manager of capital from a stock market perspective. If you'd never really want to buy a business off them, because if they're selling it, you probably don't want to buy it. They are very sharp with their numbers. How does a business like Wesfarmers impact your thinking around competition going forward and things like that?
Well, people, I mean, I get asked this question all the time. I mean, is Wesfarmers going to affect you? Are you worried about Wesfarmers? Are you, does it make you stay awake at night? And I said, no, the only thing that makes me stay up awake at night is insomnia. Now, look, the fact that Wesfarmers entered the market was actually probably a good thing. I mean, competition is not a bad thing, because without competition, you're not innovative, you're not creative, you become fat and lazy. And I think that we saw Wesfarmers coming, so we rallied the troops. We spoke to all the manufacturers. We re-cemented our position with them. We locked in all the advertising promotion activities for the next couple of years, and we went out with a new lease on life. We sort of said, this is not going to be beer and Skittles, but it's going to give us an opportunity to go out there stronger than ever, and we are. And we make every post a winner. We make sure that everything we do, we get the best possible result with the suppliers and products and develop products.
What's the relative size difference between the two businesses, Jack?
Priceline.
Yeah, what Wesfarmers have bought now and your business.
Priceline is a franchise business, so that the actual API is probably around about I think it's about a $4 billion business.
Yeah.
And that would include the franchise fees from the stores. So the stores are probably around about $2 billion in turnover, 2 or 3. I don't know the exact number. To be honest, people say to me, like, how much do you know about your competitors? And I say, look, we don't focus on our competitors. We focus on what we can do. We can focus on making sure that we get the best results for our customers. I mean, we're very customer focused. All our buyers come from the stores, and all our buyers work in the stores on a regular basis. And everyone comes through the ranks, so that we're very focused on providing service for our customers and looking after what our customers want.
I understand that you started the family business Australia. So you've transitioned from that family business through to a corporate. How have you found that process?
Well, I mean, it happens gradually, like, it's not like, I mean, you're right. I started Family Business Australia. I mean, after I sold the business in 91, I was approached by the National Australia Bank, Arthur Anderson, and a few others that wanted to start an organization that could provide services to family businesses. And I found that really fascinating, because I was in a family business with my brother and with my partners, and I really enjoyed the whole process. I went to a lot of seminars, learned more about family business. And yeah, right. I mean, family businesses have got some big advantages, some big disadvantages. We have to translate to we have to change to a business that runs not like a family business, but runs like a big corporate. And that's what we're in the process of doing. And we've done that over the last 20 years. I mean, since Chemist Warehouse, I mean, it's not a small business. It's a business doing $12 million turnover. It's completely different operation than a business that's doing $1.5 million turnover and it's got three staff. So it's a completely different animal.
And Jack, in terms of those sorts of things, if there was anyone starting a business today, what's the best advice you've been given along the way that you would impart on someone?
When I sold the Australis business, I did an MBA and I did a semester at NYU.
Okay.
And I learned. I think the most important thing I learned was that you don't want to get into a fair fight.
Right.
If you're going to be in a fight with someone, if you want to start a business, you've got to have a strategic advantage. If you don't have a strategic advantage, then don't do it, because you're gonna expend too much energy unless you've got a strategic advantage. I mean, like, people come up to me all the time and they say, Jack, I've got this really great idea. I want to do X, Y, Z. And I said, like, for example, someone says, this is a makeup thing, but someone says, I've got an automatic dog poo picker upper. Okay, that sounds like a great idea. Now, what makes you think that you've got a strategic advantage over that guy over there who thought of the same thing exactly? And don't tell me you're going to work harder or you've got money. If you don't have a strategic advantage, then you're working against the you're working against the current.
Yeah.
What you want to do is have like, for example, if your father-in-law is the head of the veterinary association and or you've got someone that's got 80, 100 veterinary, 100 retail stores that that sell dog food,
yeah,
and you can get distribution, then you've got a strategic advantage because you can get the product into retail, whereas that guy over there doesn't know where to start.
yeah.
So unless you've got a strategic advantage, people said to me, "Okay, Jack, you're so smart. What was the strategic advantage that you used when you started in sunglasses?" Well, the strategic advantage that I had was that there was maybe 50 people selling sunglasses to pharmacy at the time, at least 50 people. And they would go into the store and they'd knock on the door and they'd say, "Please buy my sunglasses. They're the best thing since sliced bread." I didn't do that. I said, "I'm a fellow pharmacist like you. And I think that if I'd like you to be able to participate in what I do, because you're taking advantage at the grassroots level and you're helping a fellow pharmacist." And so I got to be able to speak to the pharmacist, or at least my salespeople were to speak to the pharmacist, and cut through all of the all of the barriers that the pharmacist throws up when a new salesman comes in. So that we got instant, we got in there and we got instant success and instant support because of that. So that was a strategic advantage. I mean, if you think about it, it was the fact that we were talking to them on a personal level and saying, "Hey, don't buy from the multinationals from Polaroid and Sonaroid and BYs, which are run by Gillette and Wilkinson Sword. Buy from us, a fellow pharmacist like you." And they opened up to that, and that was the success. So in business, I think you've got to look for the strategic advantage. And if you can't find one, then keep looking for a different business, because if you don't have a strategic advantage, although it might be successful long term, it's going to be so much harder to make it successful than one where you do have a strategic advantage and you actually can, you don't want to. You don't want to pushing up
against the hill, aren't you?
Yeah, you don't want to get into a fair fight. With a fair fight, both parties end up with bloody noses.
Yeah.
So you want to end up where you've got a strategic advantage.
Yeah, and just to finish, in terms of other business people that you've admired over the time, is there anyone that comes to mind that, whether it's someone that mentored you or just someone in business life in general, globally, that you sort of looked at and thought that you've learned lessons from them and they've been...
There's not one particular person. I mean, I enjoy listening to business stories. I enjoy listening to other people, what they've done. I mean, I belong to YPO, and at YPO you have opportunities to meet business people, and they'll tell you the truth of what goes on, warts and all.
Yep.
I think that you can learn something. I learn something every day. I mean, every day I wake up every day and I want to know what I'm going to learn. I learn something every day. I don't think there's any particular mentor that I look up to. I just think that anyone that's been successful, any entrepreneur that's been successful, you can learn from them, because there's so many parallels you can use yourself.
It's so true. Whether it's business, even if it's sport or other sorts.
Well, it's exactly any success story, has got things that you can use in your own personal life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on that note, Jack, thanks very much for coming on the show. It was really great to hear your insights and hear about the journey from Chemist Warehouse. And thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you for the interview.
Thank you.